Okay, so before we get too into it, everybody, meet Kimberly. I won her at a Dave & Buster's back home over the summer, and she is the latest member of the film crew and may actually be the final member of the film crew, as most of the movie theaters have removed their claw machines. So it's kind of the end of an era, but you know what? That's okay. Change is good, change is coming, and, you know, I'm excited about the future. So, but Kimberly will be joining us. Welcome aboard. And that's about the end of my jovial attitude. Man, this film, this drained me, and not in the way that you kind of want to be drained when you're seeing a movie about a daring real life rescue, racing against time and the elements, and life and death are literally on the line. No, this movie drained me because it is so soul-crushingly boring. Oh my god, it is so boring. So before we get started, there's some things I need to cover, and I need to say these things up front because I think even more so than in any other film I've ever talked about based on real events, I feel this one, it is really imperative to get these points out of the way first. So before we get into that, real quick, so in case you don't remember or don't know, or you haven't heard of this movie, so this is a recounting of the events of, I believe it was 2018 in Thailand, where a soccer team, a youth soccer team, and their coach went exploring one of the caves in the area, and unbeknownst to them, a heavy rainfall hit, and the water level inside the cave rose and basically trapped them in there. And so this became a kind of an international rescue operation from people all over the world coming to lend a hand and to try to get these kids and their coach out of the cave. It was big news for the 2 weeks it was going on. And this film is a very loving recreation of those events. And when I say loving recreation, I think that's the best terminology that I can use to describe what this movie is. This is not a, based on a true story type thing. This is someone trying to, as accurately as they can, recount the facts and events that took place. It's going so far as to, in 90% of cases, not cast actors in the movie, but rather get the actual people who participated in the event to play themselves. So that is a level of dedication that must be applauded. It really, really must be. And so this is where I need to really make sure I'm clear here. When I speak of this film, I want it to be crystal clear. I am speaking about this film solely as a motion picture, okay? As a narrative story and the elements within. When I criticize this movie, which I am going to, so be aware, I am in no way, shape, or form meaning to cast aspersions or disrespect on the multitude of heroic individuals who put their own well-being aside, be it financial well-being, physical well-being, professional well-being. In one case, a person actually lost their life trying to rescue these kids. These are acts of true, honest-to-goodness heroism in the purest sense of the word. And I have nothing but respect for anyone who had anything to do with this rescue. Nothing but respect. I don't care if your job was fetching coffee. You did something important for this to help save those kids. And again, when I speak of this film, I am speaking of it as a narrative story. not as any kind of slight to anybody who's actually involved with the rescue. I want to make that crystal clear so that I don't get a lot of hate messages going, how dare you criticize this person? How dare you? I am not criticizing them as a person. I am not criticizing them for what they did. I am speaking strictly and purely in the guise of a amateur film critic. Just talking about the film, okay? So now that I've thoroughly done that and hopefully covered my ass enough, now we can finally talk about this film, which is going to be very difficult because this is not a movie. This is not a movie. This is a motion picture. It has pictures. They are in fact moving, but a movie, no. Because it lacks some of the basic tenets of a film. You look at Aristotle's Elements of Drama, and just about every single one of them is missing. There is no constructed plot. It's a retelling of events. There are no characters, and by that I mean there are plenty of people in the movie and plenty of people who participate, but we have no character. There's no one for us to identify with or see the world through the eyes of. The closest we get is the Irish diver who comes in about halfway through, and again, I'm not trying to say he doesn't deserve the praise he gets because he is a true hero, but they kind of played up like he's the main hero of the narrative when he was just one of many. So again, not saying he doesn't deserve the respect he gets, but the film just by default, the film treats him like the main character, and I'm not sure why. I don't know anything about him. I know the very basics about him. So there's no character. There's no real theme. What is the moral? I think I know. So maybe there is a theme, but it's very light, and it is not informing the story in any way, shape, or form. Language, there's limited dialogue. I think mostly to help, mask the wonderful people who came back to reenact these scenes, to kind of help them out, so you're not giving them huge emotional monologues, you're just letting them say basically what they would say in this situation. So there's not a lot of language. There's barely any spectacle. A movie about rescuing people from an underwater cave sounds like it'd be a great thing for amazing camera shots and underwater tension. There's none of that. The closest thing I can relate this movie, ran my fingers through my hair. I'm sorry. Please don't get mad. Please don't get mad. I'm sorry. Anyway, the closest thing I can relate this movie to is, for people of my generation, I wonder how many of you have remember the Unsolved Mysteries with Robert Stack. And before each episode, they would have this disclaimer come up, kind of like the one that's at the beginning of South Park now, but it would say, this program is about unsolved mysteries. Whenever possible, the actual family members and police officials have participated in recreating the events. What you are about to see is not a news broadcast. That's what this is. That's exactly what this is. This isn't a movie, it's a recreation of an event. And in a way, that's not a bad idea. You look at great survival films, like let's take Apollo 13, for example. Part of what makes that movie so good is watching smart people solve difficult problems. One of my favorite parts of that movie is when the engineers bring a box of, just parts and say, okay, we literally have to put a square peg into a round hole using only the stuff we have here. It's a real quick scene, but it illustrates the problem solving, the ingenuity, just what had to be done to accomplish this task. This movie doesn't do that. It wants to do that, but it's like, here's this, here's this, here's this, here's this. Okay, for example, When they're bringing the boys out, they have to give them this sedative basically to knock them out, so the divers can kind of drag them along the ropes. I can guess why they did that instead of just having them be conscious. But it would have been nice to have a scene where they said, well, why can't they just do this? Well, we can't do that because of this. Because I don't know anything about diving. And it would have been nice to have something, I hate to say spoon-fed to me, but it would be nice to explain to the audience why we are doing the things we're doing. Why choices are being made. Why, but we don't do that. We just kind of jump from event to event to, circumstance to circumstance with no real gravity to any of it, no weight to any of it, no flair to any of it. It's this story about survival and about people of all nationalities and religions and races and all this all coming together to do this one noble thing should be this amazingly uplifting thing. But it transitions from shot to shot to shot to shot with no fanfare, with no weight. They bring the first 4 boys out, and we just kind of get we're getting confirmation the first 4 are out. That's it. It's like, shouldn't that be a bigger moment? And I understand, again, this film wants to be a recreation. I get that. But you know why a lot of these movies go with the based on a true story route? Because they want to make edits or additions or whatever so they can make the story fit into a structured narrative. My mama always said that one of the hardest things about life versus the arts is that art has to make sense. Real life doesn't. In real life, things just happen. But in movies, things need a logical progression. So in any other film, you would have had all the boys escape at once and kind of make this long daisy train of it, as opposed to doing it like they really did and have them come out kind of a few at a time, a few a day. And as such, as a film, it's a very anticlimactic thing. We're just told, oh, we got this one. And we don't know. That's the other thing. Going back to the no characters. We don't know who any of these boys are. We know nothing about them. We know nothing about their coach. They're just the MacGuffins. They're just the object. There's no reverence paid to them. We don't know who they are. Right? They treat bringing the coach out, that's the big climax. That's the end of the film. That's the last rescue. And they treat it with as much grandiose as they are capable of treating anything in this movie. But again, we have no idea who this guy is. So if we don't know who they are, why do we care? And it's especially important, in my opinion, when you are doing a film like this, where the outcome is not only known, but is easily searchable, and find out the outcome, so we know they all make it out. Spoiler alert, I guess. So I think in that instance, it's even more important that we know who these people are, so we have a connection to them. Again, Apollo 13, based on a true story. We know how that came out. We know they all survived. Spoiler alert. But we care so much about the characters, and they do such a great job of selling us on the danger and the impossibility of the situation that we still feel for them and are still biting our nails waiting for them to respond at the end. This movie doesn't do that. Anytime it tries to have weight, it's undercut by the fact that there's no connection. Again, I mentioned a person lost their life doing this, trying to save these kids. And God bless him. God bless him for that. For making that sacrifice to try to save these kids. Bravery that is unmatched. True heroism. Honest to God. This movie tries to treat his passing, rightfully so, as a important moment and a real tragedy. But the problem is, we don't know who he is. We're told who these people are just by their name and where they come from and what their job is. Little text messages on the screen, or sometimes they go blank and like give us a narration to cut to bridge one scene to another. So when this poor gentleman passes away, it's like, okay, that's terrible, but we don't know anything about him. Look, I'm beating a dead horse. I get that. So let's try to wrap this up and just put it in a succinct package. If you want to make a documentary, then that's fine. I think this movie would have worked as a documentary if you interspliced it with interviews and recountings of what was going on, and who some of these people who were involved were. I think this movie would have worked very well as a documentary / reenactment. It could have been really fascinating, but they chose to do it as a feature film and as a narrative, and it doesn't hold up. What should be an enthralling and uplifting journey is just kind of there. It just sits flat, and there's nothing you can do about it. Yeah, and I am going to say this. I've really harped on this film, but let me actually end on a positive note before going to the final grade. As I said, I feel like we do need stories like this, especially now. We need stories about people coming together, putting the greater good ahead of themselves, sacrificing, again, be it financial sacrifice, personal sacrifice, safety, whatever, in order to help those who need it. It's an important story. And I won't lie and say that at the end, when they finally get the kids out and everyone's celebrating, that you don't feel that kind of, yes, this is what we can do when we put the greater good ahead of ourselves. This is what we are capable of. That's what these kind of stories are meant for. This is why they're important, to remind us of the best of ourselves, our best potential, and what we could be if we did that more often, if we didn't just wait for the disaster to do it, if we did it all the time, right? And there are some very interesting parts of this. I just wish they would have done more with it. So, it's not to say that this movie is completely terrible. It's not to say that there isn't merit in it, or that it's not a film that we don't need. It is. But I'm sorry, as a movie, it fails. As a movie, it completely fails. I don't know what else to say. I guess I will say that all of the non-actors basically playing themselves, they did decent enough jobs, but again, I think that's because I guess that's why they sacrificed, a script, really, and just had them, recite basic lines that they probably said in real life 1,000 times. So, like, there's not one of them I'm like, oh, these guys are terrible. Oh, that's not true. The newscaster that they keep cutting in, I don't know who he is, if that's the actual newscaster or what, but whoever he is, he's terrible. He was awful. Like, he felt like the only actor, and he was trying too hard to act. And it really stuck out against everything else. Okay, I've really kicked this film too much. I respect what it was trying to do. I really do. And I respect everyone involved with it and everyone involved with the rescue. But as a movie, I'm sorry, I can't recommend it unless you really need a cure for insomnia. So, there we go. So, final grade for Cave Rescue, and let's not even get into that generic-ass title. But final grade, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I'm going an F. I'm going an F on this one. I'm sorry. I don't want to do that because I understand what the director was trying to do. I respect what they were trying to do, but ultimately, it didn't work. Ultimately, it worked against you. So sorry about that, buddy, but I gotta call him as I see him. So there you go. All right. So yeah. I always hate when I get one of these movies that is bad and you give it a bad review, but it's not bad in a fun way. I don't feel good at trashing this. Some of these you feel really good and very cathartic, kind of ripping them apart. But, this one I don't feel good ripping it. I don't. So, sorry, but there it is. Okay, talked on long enough. Let's wrap it up. So thank you for joining me. Thanks for coming along. Hope you have a good weekend. And as always, drive safe, and I will see you at the movies.